Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session with your host, Michael Reardon.
Welcome, Cynthia. We're just going to be getting straight into your work today. Educational leadership and leadership coach, and basically is helping schools and principals and just everyone involved become the leaders that they should be. So I read about your background, but can you give us that foundation? Because I think it's going to set the tone for our conversation today.
Great. Thank you, Michael, for having me come on as your guest. My background, I was a high school science teacher. I taught chemistry, biology for 9 years, then went into administration. I did assistant principal for 17 years and then 5 years as a principal. And during that journey, I was also getting my master's and doctorate and was really inspired with Glenn Singleton's work with Courageous Conversations. And I thought, I really want to work with administrators and teach them about, just have those courageous conversations about race and identity. And so that was what my goal was going to be. I was going to go into that kind of leadership role with working with administrators. But then one of my mentors said, Cynthia, if you want credibility, you should become a principal before jumping into working at the university. And so I did that. That's why I did the 5 years. I was going to stay longer, but then I just had to, I ended up retiring. And now I get to do what I wanted to do. I get to coach. I'm actually coaching teachers, science teachers that are getting their credential. And I'm also coaching administrators that are clearing their credential. And so that's where I'm at now. This is like my, I think, 4th or 5th year into it.
What would you say was the most difficult aspect of being that as, the vice principal or the principal, because you're in the schools, you're dealing with the kids, you're seeing the teachers with their successes and their struggles. What would you say is the most challenging bit there?
There's a lot of challenges. Part of it is when you walk into the school, you want to see what the culture of the school is, trying to build rapport, build relationships, understand where everything is in terms of what courses are being taught, who are my students, what's my demographics, who are our teachers, are they new, are they veterans, what kind of support do I need to put in place, who are their parents, what's the background of the parents, are they immigrants, are they generations of being at that school site, and this is 3rd generation of being at that school. So just kind of understanding that part of the schooling, and then of course the curriculum, understanding what, just being aware of the curriculum of what's being taught at the school. How can I make it better? What are the needs? How can I look at both worlds whereas, are they college bound? Do they want to go to college? Do they want to, or, making sure that they do have pathways after high school? Looking at that. And then in terms of other challenges, it's just the demands of being a high school administrator. We're parents of all the students. So we go to all the games, we go to all the dances, all the performances, and it's not just focusing on one team versus the other, but just making sure that we're visible and present at the events and in the classes and connecting. Those are all the challenges, and it's just demanding of professional life and then trying to balance it with personal life.
I want to get into the qualities of leadership because we talked about, or you hinted at something where you talked about you have new teachers, you have veteran teachers. And of course, we can assume that veteran teachers are going to know the way around the block. They're going to know how to speak to students, speak to parents, know how to navigate things, juggle things, especially going to school events, having their own personal family lives going on. So they're going to be more depth into juggling everything. A new teacher might be more overwhelmed. But I do want to get into the leadership qualities because when you're going to school for education, leadership is kind of like a passive thing you're taught, but it's not so much of something like, hey, we're going into leadership training and this is a class, leadership 101, and you're going to do it. We don't necessarily get that. Now, of course, you can have a good, strong, cooperating teacher when you're going in there for your certifications and things like that. That could be a given. But sometimes that teacher that's going in, they're going in blind. They're like, I don't know what I'm about to do. And they kind of go in and they're kind of thrown to the sharks and they have to learn how to swim. So, what's your take on the different qualities from new teachers versus the veteran teachers?
So, in terms of working with new teachers, I think it's really important for administrators to go into the classrooms to see what kind of support they're going to need. It could be the physical support of the classroom, whether it's the desk, not enough desk, or the desk arrangement doesn't work for them, or it can be the classroom management, what they learned in theory versus what they can do in practice. Maybe they didn't have the best CT or cooperating teacher to help and assist. So providing support for them and allowing them to grow. So whether they're working with their department, and so I would look at it as giving them extra support, whether it's here we have a cohort of new teachers and we're going to meet, every month to go over new things that are new to them, like how to do the grades. This is kind of like an orientation throughout the year. And then supporting them in terms of good classroom management if they don't have that, or just organization, like how to organize their classroom, their board work, just some structures in place. So that's really important for new teachers. And then in terms of veteran teachers, it's really important to also go into the classroom because some of them continue to grow, but some of them get complacent. And it's a matter of providing, more conversations around how can we make it better? How can I support you and build capacity? So whether it's I want you to help your veteran teachers or your new teachers, or you're going to be another teacher leader for another group. Maybe you can lead the new teacher meetings or be a guest speaker for the new teacher. So it's building capacity to make future leaders as well.
I think we hinted at it a little bit today, but let's get down to the basics. Let's define leadership, like for what we're talking about today. Like, what is that leadership?
What do you mean? What is that leadership?
For example, a leadership for a manager from a coal factory is very different than leadership skills necessary for a school.
Oh, yeah.
So if I'm going to be probably talking to one of those top level CEOs who are going to be leaders, we might work on individual coaching for their teams. We might look at the report. We might look at how much money they're making, that process. You're not making money really for schools. So it's just a different conversation. But I believe when we're talking about schools, the aspect of leadership is a little bit more refined.
Yeah, I think of it as servant leadership, where you lead from the front, you lead from behind, you're pulling people up, guiding everybody, and creating a community where everybody is part of the system in that sense. It's not just one person that's being led, but it's everybody's being brought along through the journey.
And that's important. When I think about like school leadership, it's like everyone is the captain. And I use that word loosely. Like if you're just listening to, I use air quotes because you do have someone who's going to take the helm most of the time, but everyone plays a key pivotal role from the grade teacher to the art teacher. Everyone plays a role. And it might seem like, you're just an art teacher, you're just a gym teacher, or you're just a football coach. Everyone has a spot in that child's life when they're growing up and they're developing. And I always find that, especially like in high school, one of those children are going to gravitate maybe more to the Spanish teacher. Maybe they'll gravitate more to their English teacher. Maybe they despise their math teacher, but they love their football coach. So everyone is kind of like, like we have that mixing pot for so much goodness, and everyone is there to help those children grow into the adults that they're going to be. And one of the things that happens is, with schools especially, is that there's just so much strain on the teachers where they have an overwhelmed, like workload, They have to do grades. They have to do all of this. They might be inner city, so they have to work on behavioral stuff, and they want to teach. They want to help these kids, and it's almost like they don't know where to begin. And I know from experience when a new teacher, especially, they're going into schools and they're having all these behavioral issues, like they know the knowledge really well, but then they're trying to relay that to children. Maybe they don't know how to relay that specifically. I know for me, when I started teaching elementary level, like pre-K, all of that. And then when I finally went into middle school, it's very different. And then when I went into high school, it was actually easier than middle school, but it was still very different. How I had to speak to them was very different, and how I had to approach what I needed them to do was different. I wouldn't have known that unless I did the trial and error aspect. Of course, you can have a veteran teacher too, but then the aspect of leadership is understanding that the new people who are coming on saying, you know what, you might not be ready. I know you're a great teacher. You have the ambition. You have all of these wonderful aspects about you. But let's bring you up to the level that the children, whether they like you or not, are going to see you as a leader. It's just going to see someone that I would like to follow. And I believe that's maybe one of the most important things that we can get into a conversation is how can we make that teacher be that viable figure for those children?
I think a lot of it has to do with building relationships, building positive relationships. So whether they're new teachers that are from the area or they taught in another country and coming over and trying to adjust to the different culture of the school, the different demographics of the school. So whether it's urban or suburban, it's a matter of supporting those teachers to understand where are they coming from, what's their background, and bridging that gap, helping them understand this is the culture of the school, this is the culture of the students. The most important thing is to build those relationships with the kids, and everybody has a different learning ability, and to be able to not always know that, I mean, not always expecting everybody to be at the same page, but again, helping those that might also have an education gap to help those students along as well. Or it might be a language barrier. So how do you help those students? So it's a matter of training those teachers. And I do that when I work with as a coach with the new teachers going in. It's not just, like, again, not just theory, but being really cognizant of who's in the classroom, who is paying attention, how are you getting them engaged, what kind of work are they doing, who's dominant in the class. So it's just being really super hyper cognizant of the students, and then focusing on the positive. So not just always the disciplining part of it, but meeting the students where they are and just getting to know the kids. The kids are they're going to grow up to be adults. And I'm not the same person that I was in high school. Some of my students that I worked with are definitely not the same people that people portray them to be. And I'm really proud of the successes that they've gone through in their lifetime. So it's just a matter of letting these new teachers know that eventually these kids are going to grow up, and how did you make an impact? It's really important to just be reflective on that. And are they passionate about this? Because if not, maybe this career is not the way to go. If they don't like kids, and if they like the subject, maybe work on the subject area and be the scientist if that's what they want to do. But you have to like kids.
Very true. I think back, and I'm not sure if you're also with me on this. Like, I can look back all the way in elementary, like some of the best teachers. I could say that teacher was wonderful. I can go even to the high school level. Like, that teacher was wonderful. Even the college level, I could say that teacher was wonderful. But then there's always a teacher, I'll tell you, on elementary, high school, college level, I'm like, that teacher wasn't so wonderful. And it wasn't so much that they were necessarily a bad person. It was more that they couldn't relate to many of the students that were in the room that, was with them. So if you have a teacher, for example, it's a very affluent neighborhood and they're going into an inner city school, they might have a very different perception on what the kids can handle, what the kids can do. I know where we go to the high school level, but then we can even look at some inner cities where there's 16-year-olds that don't even know how to
Mhm.
read. So we do have to look at the aspect of how one teacher can pass on a child that is not at grade level, and then they just keep getting passed on because of the aspect of the child might be difficult to deal with. So I don't want to deal with this child for another year. So I'm going to say, you know what? Just go on to the next grade. You know, you're in English 101 now, you're going to 102, but then you're not ready for 102. And I remember even when I went into college, I had to do like a remedial English class and I didn't need it, but it was an option for me. I could do it or I could just skip to 101. I chose to do it because I was like, you know, let me see what's really wrong with me. Sure enough, I'm the top in the class and I'm like, this made no sense. So I basically wasted that did. But let me tell you, that teacher was lovely. Like I had the best time, and I wouldn't have had that experience if I didn't say, you know what, let me do this class to learn. And I have learned some skills that I keep to this day that benefit me in my work and my coaching and all of that because I took that class and I found that teacher. And there's just so many teachers. And you know, like when you go to college, there's like rateyourprofessor.com or something. So they go and they find the best teacher. So you want to make sure you find the best teacher. Typically what kids are looking for today is a teacher that's going to give like the easiest grading versus a teacher that's going to have the most impact. And I know the teacher that I was talking about that did the remedial English stuff, a lot of people didn't like her because she was so strict. She was so tough, but she did it with love. She did it because she knew everyone had this potential within them. And I know there's teachers who have that desire to kind of pull that potential out of them. Then sometimes we have those teachers who kind of were just burnt out. They're tired. They're getting ready to retire. They have the tenure, so they don't necessarily have to do anything past, you know, like making sure the kids kind of do their little things and a couple worksheets and a test here and there. But it's almost like they're checked out. How can we get everyone on board with the aspect of the whole school becoming leaders rather than just, I'm going to focus on what I need to do because I'm the English teacher, I'm the math teacher, I'm the art teacher. And it seems like there's some segregation when it comes to the subjects and the whole philosophy of what school truly is.
So I lost your question in the storytelling.
There's no questions here in coaching in session, essentially. It's more of a
Sure.
conversation.
And it's interesting that you say that because I can also relate to teachers that made a difference in my life. Of course, I think a lot of people can definitely make that same comment, and the ones that could easily turn us off. I loved math, and then I had a math teacher in high school that really didn't teach, and he just liked talking about tennis and his daughter in the tennis team and the Scantron test for math. And I thought, this is no way to learn math. You know, I was in math analysis. It was pretty high math, and I was just really discouraged with that. And then I tried to take it in college, thinking, where did I leave off? What did I miss? Because I don't even know what math I'm supposed to be in. I know I'm not in algebra, but where am I in the college level? And it became a struggle. Then I became, oh, I think I don't like math anymore. So it's really important to, as a teacher, to keep that fire going, keep the curiosity there at each level, and then at the same time meeting the students. Again, where did they get lost? If a student has a D, it's a matter of, okay, well, is it because they don't like the subject, or did they really get lost in that? And how can I, as a teacher, help these students like the subject? Because I don't want to be the one that turns them off as a teacher. It's really important to keep them motivated and loving the subject. And I can remember one of my students, and I mentioned this, I didn't mention this to you, but the student didn't do well in my chemistry class, and she really wanted to do well. And I just said, okay, well, it's almost towards the end of the semester. Let's take a look at, where did you get lost in the chapter? Was it chapter 1? chapter 2, where? Because I don't know where you got lost. I go, and she couldn't tell me where she got lost. So I said, okay, do you understand the periodic chart? Tell me what, and she can say yes, but then that's not a true assessment of what she knows. So it's like, tell me what you know. Tell me what you can tell me about the periodic chart. So she started to talk about the periodic chart. Great, okay. Now, what about, now I'm just going off on a tangent, orbitals.
We love tangents here.
What about orbitals, SP, Ds, the orbitals? Did you understand that? Did you understand the electrons around the atoms? And she says, I kind of do. I go, okay, well, that's a huge part of everything else. So let's just start from where that is. And I go, we're going to keep going through this. I go, I really want you to understand that. And then just starting up, conversions, how to convert day, hours in a day to minutes or seconds. And then that becomes, the molecular setup of those conversions. And she was able to slowly but surely understand it. So I think in terms of me as an educator, I didn't want her to get lost in chemistry. I didn't want her to hate chemistry, but I wanted her to at least, love it. And afterwards, she ended up liking it. And I know that she wanted to go into the medical field or the health field. So it was really important for her to at least have the foundation. So if she continues on to college, she has something to grasp onto and move forward.
Started to think about like what the military does when they do their training, especially like Navy SEALs and even Army,
Mm-hmm.
right? If someone is injured, they're not leaving them
Mm-hmm.
behind. Like 100%, they're like, we're coming to save you. You're coming with
Mm-hmm.
us. I'm gonna carry you 100 miles if I have to. We're not giving up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's that sense of camaraderie, maybe if you want to consider it that. Maybe it's a sense of unison where all is one, and leave no man or woman behind is a powerful aspect, because it's easy to look at something that is difficult and say that I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to teach this child anymore. Like they're just a headache. There's too much work, and like it's easier for me just to give them an A or give them a passing score, give them what they want, essentially, right? And then they don't really learn a
Mm-hmm.
lesson. But when you can have a conversation with them and you can say, okay, well, where are we, right? And where do we need to be, right? And we look at the step-by-step process to get there. That is truly what coaching is, essentially. That is what teaching is, essentially, because we're looking at where you are and where we need to be, and we're looking at paths to get there. And that's a powerful, I believe, leadership skill that not every teacher today has. So it's one of the things that if we had to look at what maybe a new teacher might have versus a veteran teacher, it goes both ways down the road, because a new teacher might be filled with all of this optimism. I'm not leaving anyone behind. And then they get burned out down the way. They're 2 years away from retirement and they don't even care. So leadership is something that has to have a longevity to it, where it's not more of, all right, I'm a leader today and tomorrow I'll think about being a leader. It's, I'm going to be a leader today. I'm going to be a leader tomorrow. I'm going to be a leader at the beginning of the school year. I'm going to be a leader at the end of the school
Mm-hmm.
year. And I'm going to be a leader in the summer still. Like there's no time off with leadership. And I think people, when they think of what is a leader, they think leadership is optional. Like, no, like everyone has the ability to be a leader. And many people are choosing to be followers today. Like, okay, I'll just kind of do what I'm told. I'll kind of, move with the flow, the ebb and flow of things. But the people who are taking initiative and trying to make their mark, and not so much to be a prominent figure in the school or in their society or whatever, it's just they're doing right by them. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be sitting with yourself and you're going to have to ask yourself a question. Did I give my all today? Especially as teachers, did I give my all to those students? And I talked about this story quite a bit, but it's been probably it's been a bit probably since I brought up this story. So when I was a teacher, one day I wasn't feeling good. I was just like out of it. I might have been at 15-20% of my capacity. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go in. I'm going to try to just kind of short end the day. And this is elementary. So as soon as I go in, it's a Tuesday. It was my most roughest days because I had a bunch of heavy hitters, and heavy hitters, what I call students you have to watch out for. So either way, these students, could read me like a book. They said, "Oh, Mr. Reardon, he's not feeling good today," and they knew I wasn't giving 100%. So after my first lesson, and I think the first grade was kindergarten, and I'm like, if I can't even get kindergarten right, I'm not getting any other grade right. So I was like, after that debacle of 40 minutes with the kindergarten class, I was like, you know what? I don't care how I feel. I'm going to give 100% now. And I gave 100%, perfect day after that. But it was that mindset that I gave myself is like, I'm going to give less of myself because I'm not feeling 100%. And the students, they don't necessarily care if you are 100% or not. They just are, looking at you as that mentor, that figure. And I think of like a hero,
Mhm.
right? Like a hero is someone who is going to overcome the odds. It's going to stand up in the face of adversity. And when they see their teachers and their adult figures and coaches that are around them succeed and get up and triumph, it gives them that invigoration also. So then they naturally become leaders because they have seen that. In our world today, like I was saying before, leadership is almost like a passive note where it's not so much of, well, you're a leader, I can follow you. Now is almost like the leaders that many children are giving them, especially at the high school age, are YouTubers, streamers, etc. And I believe we should give them better leaders to follow, whether it be teachers, whether it be parents, whether it be coaches. And that was where I really wanted this conversation to like really bring light to for the teachers to take that step up to that challenge, saying, hey, I want to be that figure for all of my students because many students that are lost, anxious, depressed, when they have a teacher in their life that truly cares and that is there for them to listen, no matter how big or how small the problem, that student's going to be more likely to overcome those
Mhm.
challenges. And we already know there's so many challenges our youth are facing, from social media, bullying in schools to bullying at home, the aspect of being accepted by their peers, a certain type of beauty standard for women. There's just so much negativity going on in their minds. Giving them a teacher that can say, hey, this is who I am and this is who you can be is so powerful. What's your take on
I
that?
love that. I absolutely love that. And I love that what you said about being and giving 100% of what you can and being there for the students and being what I feel is a role model, somebody that they can look up to, being a hero. But at the same time, there's also need to champion the kids and let them know with positive reinforcement that they're valued. So I think it's a two-way thing. I can be a role model for the kids, but at the same time, I need to just say, "Hey, I loved how you talked. You did the presentation in your class setting, or I loved how you did that debate, or you did great on stage." Making them feel visible is so important, and I mean that's also giving 100%. And then telling the teachers at the same time, "Hey, that was a great lesson. I loved how you connected with those kindergartners. I loved how you sat next to that one child that was crying, and I did notice that. So thank you." I mean, it's about recognizing as a leader, recognizing these, just everybody being really aware of everything
Mm. I
around the setting.
yeah, I think back when I was like starting just my internship, like when I was doing my master's degree, and I would have teachers like give me feedback, and I just loved the feedback. I was like, okay, this is what I need. Like I need to be told what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. Because if I was just doing the wrong thing, I might say, okay, that was wonderful, that was great. But then it can cause problems down the road. It's almost like driving a car with no oil. You might think it's fine because the car is moving, but sure enough, 50 miles down the road, your car is on the side of the road and you're like, wait, what happened? Because we didn't have that knowledge and we didn't have someone saying you need oil in your car. And I just use that as a metaphor to say, in teaching, there's there's good things you can do and there's bad things you can do. And you might not even know that the way you speak to a child can have a severe impact in their ability to challenge themselves, because you can maybe say something that you might kind of shove off with your friends and it'll be okay. But to them, they can take it to heart. And it's like, oh man, my whole day is ruined. I'm checking out this class. And it's so important that we, people as teachers, like if you're a teacher, you know, you work off each other. So if you see someone doing good, acknowledge them. Say, hey, I love that about you. And I had, like in my span of being a teacher, I had so many wonderful supportive teachers where they would just look at the positives in what someone would do. And they always say you need 3 positives for every 1 negative. So they would definitely always tack on those positives. I love this. You did so great here. And then if there was ever something, I didn't feel like I was being attacked. If they told me something that I needed to work on, I was like, okay, great. Let me work on that. I would go home and I would start to work on it. And even though it feels like you were defeated, like, man, like I'm not perfect, that was a stepping stone for you to rise to the challenge. And I always encourage, people or even teachers, if you want to just kind of be very narrow, that if you get some feedback, if you get some negative news that you don't want to hear, take it and learn how to embrace it versus like, okay, like I'm a failure here. I'm no good here, because I can imagine many teachers who don't have time. They got all these work. They have to do grading. They have to do all of their family stuff, and they have to go in and sit in for a workshop. They're already checked out. They're kind of like leaning back. And I will tell you, there are going to be good workshops and there are going to be bad
Mm-hmm.
workshops. And I love the workshops where all the teachers are kind of coming in. It's like, I got all the grades. Grades are due next week. And they're literally so stressed out. And probably the first 15 minutes, they're like, I don't want to listen to this speaker. And then after they fall in love, they're like, wow, this is so useful, all this information. So we have to learn to embrace all of this knowledge that we're going to be getting, that you can be learning how you can elevate yourself. And leadership doesn't necessarily have an end of the road. You just are not going to say, once I learn all of these qualities, I'm the leader I need to be. There's always going to be something that you can learn. There's always going to be adjustments that need to be made. And if, like you're trying to enhance your leadership, that's something that I'm sure Cynthia is going to be able to help you with, whether you're a teacher or not. Like, honest leadership can be universal in many regards. What is a takeaway you would want teachers to know about leadership and about your work?
Um, well, first, I'm thinking about just that feedback that you said about yourself.
Yeah, go for it.
Um, how important it was for you to receive feedback, whether it's good or bad. Some people don't want to hear the negative feedback, the constructive feedback. They take it very personal, and it's a matter of how can I help you grow. It's not in a negative way. I'm pointing this out. I'm just here's some ideas. So it's kind of how can I help you? But at the same time, it's being reflective. So instead of me pointing out, this is what I saw, or um, this is what you need to work on, I think it's really important to say or ask, what did you think went well? So then it's that reflective. And what would you want to do differently? I have an idea. I think you can go to another classroom and observe this. So I have some ideas. I want some suggestions. And then that kind of gives the opening of the door, right? As opposed to pointing out, you need to work on classroom management. This kid was sleeping, or you had your back turned. All those little things about classroom settings that it doesn't really matter in that sense, but it's a matter of, okay, how can I help you become a better teacher? How can I help you engage those kids? How can I make you rise to the occasion of these kids? And again, I think it's important to be courageous about expectations. So it's not just buttering up and saying, oh, you did a great job, you did a great job. If somebody is out of line, it's really important to address it. I know that there was one incident where a student came into my office. I was now principal, and that student said, Dr. Rapaido, my teacher called me an idiot in front of the whole class. And I said, well, what happened? And they kind of went through the story that they were off task, and then the teacher called them an idiot. And then I checked in with other kids and got their side of the story, of course, the witness statements, and then talked with the teacher and asked the teacher, what happened. And that teacher wanted to have, what do you call that? A union rep in the room with her. And I just said, that's fine. We can have a union rep, but I just need to know what happened. Why did you call this student an idiot? She goes, because he was acting like an idiot. So I called him an idiot. And I just thought and said to her, well, that's not appropriate. You know that. And she just kind of said, well, what should I call him? I said, he has a name. You don't use any of those. Don't call him anything else. Don't call him stupid, dumb, ugly, fat. None of those are words that should be even coming out of your mouth. And I remember the union rep said, could I write down those words so we can avoid saying those words? And I thought, you call the student by the name and you address the student by the name. And if you can't do that, then we'll just have to have another conversation about that. But is that understood? And it wasn't like I was doing this power trip. It was kind of, no, you can't do that to our kids. But because then they can take it, internalize it. And then it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy that I must be an idiot because my teacher called me an idiot. So I just kind of reiterated that and just asked, I wanted to make sure that I reflected, am I being courageous about this? Am I calling them out on that behavior? Am I being a role model as well? Am I being the best version of myself? Am I giving 100% of who I am as a leader? It's easy to sometimes go, oh, today I think I don't want to be a leader. I need a breath. Can somebody else take it to today? I mean, that's kind of, those are wishful thinking. But of course, the role is I am the leader for everybody in that building. Custodians, cafeteria people, just everybody. So it's just being 100% on and being aware of my own actions.
Very true. Leadership is something that you have to learn, I believe. We are all born to be leaders, but we do have to learn how to become the best leaders, because there's going to be moments when we are going to have that lesser version of ourselves wanting to speak and yell and shout out. And, for me, I learned best from other people, being in those classrooms. I was able to go into so many different classrooms with so many different styles of teaching, and I was able to develop my own style of teaching that just worked for me for any grade level. But it wasn't something that I was just born with, you couldn't just take me out of college and expect for me to shine in the schools if I didn't do that work. So I encourage teachers to continue to enhance their leadership. Whether you feel like you are a beginner teacher and you're so optimistic and you have all this enthusiasm to go forward and do it, or you're a veteran teacher and you believe you know it all, or maybe you're getting close to retirement, like leadership is not going to end even when you retire, because there's still going to be students that are going to be in your area. They're going to see you at the grocery store and they're going to say, Mr., Mrs., whoever, and they're going to expect a smile. And when you can smile, when you can give them that share and that support, and that you're happy to see them, that, that's going to invigorate them to do so much more. Leadership is, so versatile, and it's an important skill that we need to learn to embrace more and to enhance. As we begin to wrap up, how can people begin to find you, whether they're principals, teachers, etc., so they can inquire about working with you?
They can find me on LinkedIn under Cynthia Rapaido, and also have a cynthiarapaido.com, Cynthia Rapaido at Gmail. So those are ways that people can contact me or reach out to me.
Excellent. And I will put all of the links. I know you have LinkedIn, but I'm going to put all the other ones too, because I know you got more. So I'm going to put all of them. They're all going to be in the description box. So I encourage everyone, check out the links below. Follow her on social media, follow her, connect to her on LinkedIn, and just begin to inquire about her work, inquire about her success stories with helping other teachers around the country, maybe even the world, become the leaders that they can be. And we all have that spark of leadership. We all have the desire to be more than what we are today. So let's learn to lean into it. And I want to thank you again, Cynthia, for coming on and just talking about your work.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's such a pleasure to talk with you, and I've enjoyed your podcast that I've listened to. So thank you. Thank you for what you do for your audience.